Exercise 8, Tables for Layout and for Data. Often it's easier to draw the basic structure of your table so you'll know how to code it. As you can see here, there's a good reason I use computers to make my graphics. I'm a terrible artist. But we'll draw in this table. Tables come in grids, 3 rows, 2 columns. And I'll get rid of some of the cells or merge the top and bottom cell. We'll put our header at the top, our contents in this cell, the footer down at the bottom, some navigation on the side. We have to use the call span attribute to merge the cells in the header and footer. Let's keep that in mind. Now we need an opening and closing table tag. Inside of each table, there has to be at least one table row, or set of table rows tags. And we're going to add in TD, or table data cells, at this point. All of your contents need to be inside of a table data cell or a table heading cell. Now you can't tell much about the table now. It doesn't have anything to differentiate it from a paragraph. But let's give it an ID and we'll start styling it. I'll talk about the table whose ID is layout. And let's give it a border. 2 pixels, solid and red. That'll make it stand out. And there it is. Still doesn't look that interesting. Let's also give a border to the table, the layout table's table data cells. And you'll notice there's 2 borders now, one for the cell and one for the table itself. Let's expand this table. I think I'll just copy this cell and put it adjacent to the other one. There we have 2 cells now. That'll give us our 2 columns. And let's duplicate this whole row a couple of times. That's going to give us 3 rows with 2 columns. We'll put the navigation in the middle row on the left. We'll put the content or the footer on the bottom row on the left and the header on the top row on the left. All right, it's time to use our column span attribute. It goes inside of the table data cell. And we're going to span 2 columns. Let's save it. And notice it kicks the one extra cell off to the side. Let's eliminate that one because we only need 1 cell on that top row. Save it again. And now the table's acting nicely. We'll do the same on the bottom row, or that bottom cell for the footer, and tidy up our table. So now we're ready to add some content and do some styling. I'm going to give the table a width. More importantly, I'm going to tell the borders in the table to collapse. This gets rid of the double border setup when you have a border around the table and around the cells themselves. Now I'll go for the width, 75%. And notice how the table stretches. The navigation cell stretches pretty far. Since we'll give it a class so we can style it. That's the purpose for classes and also often your IDs. So let's talk about the table whose ID is layout. And in that table row of that table is a table cell whose class is nav. Let's make its width only 200 pixels. Notice it pulls down in the size, and as I play with the browser window, its size or width stays fixed, no matter what the rest of the table does. I've added some content. I'm going to put a heading inside of this first cell, and just a little bit of content. I'm using filler text right now. I will add some more later, though. Notice how everything lines up. The navigation, it's down there. Let's go back to exercise 7. I'm just going to grab this whole unordered list that was my navigation there. And let's paste it right in this table cell that's going to hold my navigation. And there's those navigation links in a list. But they're kind of stuck in the middle. By default, the vertical alignment is in the center. But we're going to change vertical alignment to top for this particular cell. Now our links will be at the top of the cell. I'll use the old trick of margin 0 top and bottom and auto left and right to center the table in the page. Good. And I'm going to add classes to the cells that need them. In this case, the head. Here's one for the content, or contents. And I know there's one at the bottom. We're going to call or classify that one as footy. Now let's do some styling. We'll give our body a background color to make the table stand out. And I'll give a background color of white to the table. Now let's talk about that head table cell. We'll give it a background color of navy. And to make our header visible, we'll change it to white. That looks pretty nice. Let's center it in the page by giving text align center. This works for paragraphs as well as this table data cell. Now, we'll choose some fonts. Remember, if it has more than one name, use single quotes around it, separated by commas. Always end with a generic. That looks better. I think I'll play with the line height a little bit and see if I can get that text to spread out in my content area. Give it a little bit more breathing room. Let's try 140. Not bad. How about a little more? I like it. Now I'm going to grab my styles from exercise 7 to get my rollover effect on my navigation links. It just so happens we had them in a nav structure or a nav container in the other ones, and I called my table cell or classified it as nav. So we can use these to get the same effects. Okay, there they are, but they're all stacked up. Well, let's change them from inline to block. Now they're stacked upon each other nicely. Let's give them a little margin between so they'll spread out a bit. Margin bottom will work fine. There we have it. Looks good. I'm going to play with it a little bit. Slim down this column. I think I forgot a period in there to... Oh, there it is. That's why I'm not getting the rollover effect. Good. Alright. We'll do some more styling. Get it looking nice enough. And I think I'll get rid of the internal borders. That looks pretty good. And let's get rid of the external border as well. Well, that's a decent looking layout. Let's style the footy. And I think I'll give it that same background color of navy and color of white. Center the text. Notice you can't see the links though. I'll have to give them their own style as well. So we'll talk about anchor tags that are in that particular cell, and we'll make sure that their color is white. And now they show up just fine. I've added a second table, and it's got some headings inside of it, if you notice. I like to keep a second table outside of the original table until it looks good. Then I'll nest it inside of the layout table. And I'll put it right here after my cookies heading. And let's look at it. And there's that table. Let's style it a little bit and see if we can get the text to flow around it. Let's float it to the right. That way the text will wrap around it. Text is a little tight. Let's give it a margin 0 on top, clockwise, 0 to the right, 10 pixels on the bottom, and 10 pixels to the left. Remember, they go in clockwise order. Okay, that pushes the text back a little bit. The table's just a little bit airy to me. I'll cut out the padding just a little bit. Good. And I want to change its line height. It's a little bit too much. How about 120%? Good. So get your tables done. Make sure they validate. Make sure the look is how you want it to be. I'm going to add one more thing, a pseudo class of hover for the table, my data table's rows. When the user hovers over the row, it'll change color and make it easier to read the data. This doesn't always work in Internet Explorer, but it works in other browsers. There we go. Alright, have fun with these tables. They're pretty useful. But remember, better layout is done with structural objects and divs.